Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Now, for those who don't know me, one of the day jobs that I do is that I teach. Now, I have been teaching for almost the last 15 years or so, and while I primarily teach law students, I do sometimes teach students from other disciplines like students who are studying for MBAs. And one of the questions I always get and all my students struggle with is time management. Managing their time with other obligations and studying, as well as how to study. I recently read a book which I think could be very useful for law students or in fact students of any discipline to develop the habit of studying. It's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now unfortunately I don't have a physical copy of this book to show you because I read the book on my Kindle. But I thought it might be interesting for me to share a few of the tips that I learned from this book which might help students develop the habit of studying, reduce stress in their lives and finally do well in exams. Let's get started. Now, first things first, this is only a discussion of some of the things that I picked up from the book Atomic Habits. So this will not be a substitute to reading the book. So if anybody is interested in developing better habits in your life, I do strongly recommend that you read this book. Now that that's out of the way, as students, most of us think that success comes from massive efforts or big changes. James Clear flips this idea on its head. He believes that tiny habits or atomic habits repeated over a long period of time is the key to success. Let me break this down with some examples. Imagine you're overwhelmed with reading a case study or a giant textbook. Instead of trying to cram for hours, what if you committed to just reading 15 minutes a day? That doesn't seem that daunting, does it? According to James Clear, that's the power of small habits. They're sustainable and they build momentum. Clear's framework on how to develop good habits and how to break bad habits revolves around 4 principles. Now let me see if I can break this down on how it might apply to a student's life. Number 1, make it obvious. He says that if you want to develop a new habit, like let's say you want to review your lecture notes every night, make it obvious. Place your notes on your desk where you'll see them right after dinner. Basically, place it so that it's impossible for you to ignore. Number 2, make it attractive. For example, you can pair your study session with something you enjoy. This can be something simple like enjoying your favorite snack while you study or listening to your favorite playlist on Spotify while you study. These days, when I need to do any kind of work that needs concentrating, I put on a playlist from my favorite movie soundtracks on Spotify on my noise cancelling headphones and I'm good to go. Number 3, make it easy. Don't overcomplicate things. Start small. Instead of telling yourself that you study for 5 hours today or that you will study the entirety of Marxism today, commit to studying for 15 minutes. Often you will notice that once you start, you'll keep going for much longer. James Clear explains that the friction is often with getting started. Number 4, make it satisfying. Clear explains in his book that it's important to celebrate your wins. For example, if you finish your study session, treat yourself to something that you enjoy. I also find putting a tick on my habit tracker to be extremely satisfying. Once I've developed a little bit of a streak, I don't want that streak to end. Another good example of how I celebrated my wins was when I was studying for my bachelor's degree. I used to reward myself with an episode of my favorite TV show for every 30 minutes of studying I did. Now, I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but clearly I was developing an atomic habit, as James Clear says. Now that we've talked about how to develop good habits, let's talk about how to break bad habits. James Clear suggests inverting these 4 principles. This means making the bad habit invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. The worst habit that students usually face these days is with using their phones and social media. The instant dopamine hit that social media and doom scrolling can give is a very difficult habit to break for students. The phones often end up hijacking their study sessions. So you need to make it harder to access your phone and your social media accounts. One option is to turn off notifications on your phone, put it on Do Not Disturb mode, and put it in a drawer in another room while you study. If that doesn't help, you can even try app blockers and even logging out and deleting your social media apps on your phone. James Clear explains that the beauty of atomic habits is in its compounding effect. Just like interest grows in a bank account, small daily actions add up to big achievements over time. So even if you start small, remember that progress is progress. Again, if you're a law student or anybody trying to develop good habits, I strongly recommend reading James Clear's book Atomic Habits. Start small, stay consistent, and watch your efforts compound. If you found this video useful, please do consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more content like this. I'll see you in another episode. Take care. Bye.